Hey everybody, Bill from Iowa. So, here's probably something most people don't know about Bill from Iowa unless you're from New London. Bill from Iowa owns a DJ system. Bill from Iowa's been a DJ, or used to be a DJ, started back in 1986. I think I was 15 years old. I did my first high school dance in the elementary gym at New London, Iowa. Here we are, 40 years later, and we're still screwing around with this stuff. This is not the original system that I owned in 1986. This system was bought, 15 years ago when I lived up in Canada. Now, we've made some adjustments, obviously, in 15 years. It's been a good portion of the last 10 years sitting in the shop, and my nephew's getting married in May, and I was asked if I would DJ the wedding, if I still had my DJ system. So, even though I have no idea whatsoever what people in their 20s, what kind of music those folks are listening to, I said, sure, I'll get it out. Let's see if it works. That was a month ago. And I think finally today, we have finished the rebuilding process. So, what do we got here? Well, it's not the best system, but it's also not crap, right? It's decent for a guy who just happens to have a DJ system sitting in a shop. We start with the Pile. Pile's a 4500 Pro, and Pile runs the tops. The tops are just let's see here. Just, a 10-inch woofer, mid-range, whatever, with a horn tweeter on them. 4,500 watts is plenty for those speakers. Those speakers are 100 watts continuous, 200 watts peak. So we're never going to get that amp turned all the way up. And it's got nice meters on it, so you can tell when you're starting to get into the red line. Underneath that, this is a new addition, the Gemini 5,000 watt, what is it? XGA 5000. I had a Gemini 2,000 watt XGA 2000, but that didn't survive the 7 years in the shop. When we brought her in and I plugged it in, it automatically redlined, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So these Gemini 5000s are like $250. It's amazing how much cheaper this equipment is now than what it was back in the 80s and the early 90s, because you can buy a 5,000 watt amp for $250. Back in the day, I bought a PVC CS800 used, and that thing was, I think, $800. So the equipment has definitely got a lot cheaper now. I'm sure the equipment isn't near the quality of what it was back then. It's like everything else. So between those two, the 5,000 watt amp runs the subwoofers. The 4,500 runs the uppers. You got 9,500 watts. We'll never touch that with the speakers I have, because if we did, if we even tried, we'd probably blow everything up. But let's face it, most of this stuff's made in China, and they're saying it's a 5,000 watt amp. They're saying it's 4,500 watts, but it's probably not anywhere close to that. So, up top, you got your old school, I don't know, I think it's a 10-band graphic equalizer with a high-low cutout. Another item that didn't survive was my Realistic, which I'm so depressed about, my Realistic Radio Shack DJ mixer. I'm thinking it probably just needs cleaned up, but every time you move a slide, it scratches and creaks and makes all kinds of horrible noise. And it didn't have Bluetooth capability. So Pile sells pretty much the same thing, DJ mixer, only instead of it being $130, $140 back in the 80s, this thing was $40. And though it's not high quality, but it works. And it has Bluetooth. That is awesome, right? Because I'm used to having to plug everything in, but now I can Bluetooth my phone, I can Bluetooth your phone, I can Bluetooth whatever. And then, of course, you still got the ability to plug into phones. You know, there's the Samsung, that's the Apple. So, and then obviously the computer will get plugged in at some point. I'm not real sure. We haven't done that. So that's the game plan, right? 9,500 watts. We got a 3-channel mixer with Bluetooth, right? I don't have any music anymore, but you know, you can download a DJ streaming service onto your computer for like 25, 30 bucks a month. And they give you 35,000 song options. So that should be enough. So what do we got up front? Let's go take a look. We already talked about the uppers. They're not huge. You know, like I said, it's 10-inch woofer. And you got a horn tweeter in there. 100 watt continuous. 200 watt peak. So we got those. And then we have those. So there's the subwoofer setup. We started with just the 2 on the outside, right? But when we brought them in for the shop, none of it would work. So I thought, well, speakers didn't make it. Ordered new speakers. Put the new speakers in those cases, and they didn't work either. So then I was like, well, let's check the crossovers. Yep, the crossovers were blown. So ordered new crossovers. Those crossovers came in, we hooked everything up, and boom, speakers work. Now the dilemma. I've got 2 more speakers sitting here and no case. Well, what's the point in that? So I ordered a new case. And a new crossover. So those are rated at 400 a piece. That 5,000 watt amp is bridged. So it's pretty much putting out 5,000 or whatever it's capable of, but you've got 1,600 worth of speakers there, so I'm not too worried. The bridged amp's running in 2 home with 4 speakers on, so it shouldn't be a problem. It doesn't pop the way I would like it to pop, right? You don't feel it in your chest, at least not in this basement. You know, 15-inch subwoofers for a basement, for your family basement, really isn't the best setup. You know, a 10-inch subwoofer, an 8 or a 12-inch subwoofer, you can feel the thump, thump, thump. But with a 15 in a basement, you know, there's geometry that comes into play when you're hooking up subwoofer systems. And a lot of that geometry is how big of a room that you're going to be in, because you have to have enough room for the sound to bounce around, you know, so that you can literally hear it. And we don't have that here in the basement. But that's what we got. We don't have one 15-inch. We don't have 2 15-inch. We have 4 15-inch subwoofers. And they do sound good. You know, even in the basement. I'm kind of excited about getting to the reception hall and hooking this thing up and see what it sounds like there. We have the lights, right? You got your standard, you know, DJ lights. You got the old school white strobe light. You got the laser light, you know, laser stage light, and then once again the old school just DJ lights. And of course, we've got the same combination over here. So like I said, it's been a month work in progress. We still got a little bit of work to do because I don't like that spaghetti noodle setup that we've got going here. So now that we've got everything, all the hardware that we actually are going to use, now we're gonna maybe, you know, buy some cables that aren't as long, or, you know, just kind of bring everything together so it looks a little neater, so it just doesn't look like just a jumbled up bunch of wires, because ultimately that's what it is right now. So what's the next step? Well, my sister is going to bring a laptop over, or a tablet. We're going to make sure it's compatible with the system, because those 20-year-olds that are getting married are going to put together a song list for the old man, and they're going to download a bunch of music onto said tablet, so I don't have to search for it. And then once we get said tablet, we'll we'll be able to start playing with it. Then we can clean everything up, because I haven't cleaned anything since it was sitting in the shop. As you can tell, there's still quite a bit of dust on stuff. Clean it up, package it up, and wait for the end of May. Hope everybody had a great weekend. 10-minute long video. I apologize for that, but there's a lot of stuff to go over. It's Bill from Iowa. We'll talk to you later.